Hey everyone! As you know, because you clicked on this video, this is going to be a walkthrough of a vintage Japanese deck, a deck that we know in English as the Keishobou Tarot. What you don't know, because hardly anyone knows this deck, is that it is a Marseille-Waite hybrid. And I thought it would be fun to kind of show at this point because a few weeks ago, a deck was published in France called the Marseille-Waite, and it is a kind of hybrid deck. It takes a lot of, Marseille iconography through the courts and majors, and the same illustrator then went ahead and did pictorial type minors, just picking up on Rider-Waite-Smith imagery. One artist did the entire deck, so it looks very unified. And for people who have wanted a Marseille-inspired deck with pictorial pips, this deck is a good way to do that. However, a few people have kind of put it out there that this is the first deck to wed Marseille and RWS, and that is incorrect. I think that this deck that we've got here, the Keishobou, is the first deck to do that, and honestly I think it did it better than the Marseille-Waite that was published here in 2020. The illustrator of this, a guy who typically goes by Gaichi, what is it? I wrote it down somewhere. Gaichi Matsumura. He actually did use a style very much like traditional Marseille cards. So the overall effect does very much look like an RWS Marseille. So I thought it might be fun to just kind of like flip through these cards, and then at the end of the video, I'll share a little bit about what I know about the publication history of this particular deck, which isn't all that much, to be honest. As we can see here, we've got our Fool. Everything with this deck is a little zoomed in, a little bit more than you would find in a Marseille. But here even we've got some of the nods towards RWS. We can see these roses up top, the lilies below. The High Priestess is looking very Marseille, as is our Empress. I think the Emperor here looks way more RWS than most Marseille. He is sitting on that throne, the throne is facing you. It does have the ram's heads, but it looks a little Marseille. A very, very Marseille Lovers. And here, Justice is in figure 8, or card position 8, I guess. Again, Wheel of Fortune that is far more Marseille inspired than RWS. Strength is now 11. And the Hanged Man, I actually love the way that the Hanged Man was cropped in. Usually on a Marseille you're going to see a bar, and then a bar over here. Here they just kind of moved it over, so it kind of is bridging that Marseille RWS divide because you can only see like one central pillar. So it could go either way. I thought that was quite clever. A very Marseille Death, very big blue skeleton. One of the things I actually really love about this moon is how it looks like the dogs are not necessarily barking, but they're like reaching out to like lick the light coming out of the moon, which I think is kind of cool. Our Divine Twins there for the sun. I do think that the art could have been cropped slightly differently or arranged. This is an awful lot of white space between the angel and the corpses below, but and here we start our minors. With this, the aces and the court cards do look a little Marseille. This one's maybe a little bit more RWS with the droopy foliage coming out of the sword here. Also, where's the sword tip? But everything else is, for the most part, RWS with the exception of one card, which we'll talk about when we get there, which won't be far. Here's our two. And this is the one card that does not have a strong RWS homologue. That is because the number 4 in a lot of Asian countries has one of the ways to say it is like she. That's also one of the ways you say the word for death. So in a lot of Asian countries, there's this superstition around 4, much as in Western countries, there's a superstition around the number 13. With the 4 of Swords in the Waite deck, it looks like you're in a crypt, basically. You've got one of those fancy coffins for rich people where they've got a sculpture of whoever it is who died on top of the coffin. You see the stained glass. It looks very death-like. And it's supposed to be, extreme rest, take a break, a really long break. I can see where the death connotation in an Asian country would have been far more than what the card actually intended. So Gaichi, the illustrator, he took inspiration from the Sheridan Douglas Tarot, where in that deck, people have laid down their swords and are now engaging in a chess game. The chess game in the Sheridan Douglas Tarot looks a little bit more recreational. That guy really looks angry. You see a piece down here. It looks like after the game, or maybe they're setting up for the game. But this is a little less peaceful, I think, than Sheridan Douglas did it, but still pretty cool. R5. Yeah, here it's just, one central figure rowing a boat. You don't have the others, but still far more like RWS than anything else. This one might actually be one of my favorite Nine of Swords. Oh, this is also cool. All the pages have been changed to Jack. That's a very dandy king. There's a tiny little bit of green. Oh, and purple. I've not really been paying attention to the colors. Fat and sassy. This 10, I think the meaning changes a little bit for me. I'm not getting those like happy family connotations. This is reading a little bit more pie in the sky to me, especially because she's pointing up. But still, I can see the RWS similarities. Got our Jack and his fish. This queen, I don't know. Like, you don't see any water. I think that this should have been blue down here, but we do get the water in the king, though. Here's some purple. I think this card is a little thicker for some reason. And finally, your Pentacles. There we go. So that is the OG Marseille-Waite hybrid, the Keishobou Tarot. What I'm going to do now is get the camera all set up so that I can show you the box and explain a little bit about what I know about the deck. All right, guys, so this is what the box of this tarot deck looks like. And as you can see, there's really no reason for why anyone calls it the Keishobou Tarot. That's not the title. All the title is tarot. Much kind of like the J.K. Waite, actually. Slide him over here. Right? The J.K. Waite is also just tarot cards, right? The name Keishobou comes from, I think, what people understand the publisher to be, but even then I'm not fully convinced that that's actually who the publisher is. This is the front cover of the box. The box looks the same as the guidebook, right? And I have gone ahead and looked up all the different characters to be sure I was, getting good information. This chunk here is just tarot in Japanese. Here, all it is the name of the man who wrote the guidebook, Isao Nakai. And this chunk basically reads by Isao Nakai. Kind of easy. Okay. We flip here to the spine. Probably put that up there. That looks a little bit better. All right. The spine just says tarot in, Roman letters. Here, this looks slightly complicated. This is basically saying supplementary tarot cards. This first bit is Furuku, Doroto, Garo. And when you're writing in this type of special character to indicate that it's not a Japanese word, you separate the words with this little dot. So this basically is just supplementary tarot cards. Here we've got repeated the name of the author of the book, Isao Nakai, so by Isao Nakai. And then down here we've got the publisher's name, Keishobou. Where I'm slightly thrown is this particular character. Everywhere I've looked it up, it is given as Tsugi, but as we can see, right, they did write K-E-I right above it, so a lot of people are calling it Keishobou. Shobu is just a Japanese word that means like library or bookstore, bookseller, things of that nature, so I guess it all kind of works. Here we've got our back. Up here we've got Keishobou, the publisher. And down here we've got Deka, 2,350 yen. So that basically means list price 2,350 yen. I did look up a conversion because I was interested to know how much that actually was. If you converted 1973 yen to 2020 USD, this deck would be $44.57 in today's money. So that's kind of cool. Other names, other words that are helpful if you're trying to track down this deck are these here. There's a foreword that was written to the book. Apparently the author of that foreword is Masatoshi Yoshida. What I could find on this person is that they were a tarot collector and a professor at a women's university. The deck is illustrated by Masakazu Matsumura. On all the different cards, what we see here is this copyright 1973 Gaichi. And I'm not going to say all the cards, most of the cards. For instance, this 2 doesn't have that copyright anywhere. right? But on most of the cards, you are going to see some sort of a copyright with Gaichi, and I believe that that is Matsumura. I did look up Masakazu to kind of confirm like which characters meant what, and one of the things I was finding is that I think that this Gaichi is just a nickname for Masakazu, kind of like how we've got like Robert and Bobby. Another person that does often come up in conjunction with this deck is Ippei Ito, who is credited as the advisor to the illustrator. So I guess if Matsumura had any questions like how should I illustrate this versus that, should I illustrate the 4 like Waite did, or should I change it to something else, this was the guy who helped him make those decisions. So those are some fun things. And in my description below, I'll try to have all this kanji characters, Japanese characters, so that if you did need to copy paste them somewhere, you could. All right. As we can see here, the book part is pretty solid. It looks just like the front and back covers. Very similar thing here. Tarot by Isao Nakai, Keishobou. With Japanese books, they have a flipped orientation to how we typically look at them in English. So the front's the back and the back's the front. Right. It's really neat. I have no idea what any of it says, but it's very pretty. This is all that forward, I believe. And then we get to the description of the step 8 cards, which I think is what Isao Nakai wrote. And as we can see, we've got black and white, pretty decent scale images of the cards. Let me see if I can't. Ooh, didn't want to break the spine there. It's a slightly smaller scale than the card itself, but still very big for what it is. The other thing that I kind of wanted to point out about the book is if you are ever interested in trying to figure out like what edition you have of various things, the thing to look at, I'm trying very hard not to destroy my book here, is something that'll look like this. This is the publication information. The big thing to pay attention to is this chunk that's usually up in this corner of this area. Here it is blown up. You'll see 2 things that look like this. This is the dates. In Japan, they typically do mark date not necessarily by like 1973, 1974, but by years of a particular reign or a particular important epoch of history. So 1973 was Showa year 48, 1975 was Showa year 50. What this means is the deck was first published on January 20th of 1973. This exact copy was printed February 20th, 1975. This particular thing you also kind of look over off to the side. This has 9 and then some characters. This literally says 9th printing, right? That's not necessarily 9th edition. It's just this is the 9th time this was printed, which I think is kind of cool. If you were all that interested in the box that the cards come in, this is what it looks like. Kind of plain. Judgment on the front, Death on the back, and then tarot cards and Keishobou here at the bottom. So that is how that all looks when it's all put together. Yeah, that's about all I know about this. 1973, very interesting deck. I'm very happy I have it in my collection, and I think that it makes a really neat Marseille-Waite hybrid. Thank you so much and enjoy your day. Bye guys.